this morning. I just want to remind all of us that this Christmas season that's coming up, that we celebrate the birth of our Savior Jesus Christ, that we not forget the reason for the season. I brought this up this past Saturday at the Reach Across America over at Pikeville, where several of us commissioners spoke. And we talked about, with the Reach Across America, the sacrifice that citizens and our veterans have made. They made the ultimate sacrifice for us to have the freedoms that we enjoy. But our birth of our Savior, Jesus Christ, is also very important in the fact that without the birth of Christ, there was no crucifixion. So therefore, we have no place to ask forgiveness of our sins. So I made the comparison that veterans and citizens of America have given a lot for our freedom, but Jesus Christ gave the ultimate sacrifice also on the cross for our sins. So I wanted us not to forget the reason for the season. Let us pray. Father in heaven, we're grateful that we live in this Wayne County, state of North Carolina, and the United States of America. We thank you, Father, for allowing us to remain free and to make a choice as to how we live our life. Father, today, as we go into this Christmas season, Father, we have concerns about our troubles in our nation and, yes, across the world. But, Father, we know that you are the ultimate ruler, that you are in control, that, Father, that you are more aware of the results than we are. You already know what the outcome is. And, Father, today, as we think about the ones that are serving our country across this world, the firemen that protect our properties, the emergency services people that keep us healthy, and Father, the Deputy Sheriff's Department here in Wayne County and across this nation that keep us safe. Father, we ask that you might give them an extra measure of confidence and security today, wherever they are. Father, as we conduct the business of this county, we ask, Father, that you would endow in us, each of us, the wisdom that we need to carry on the business of this county. Father, we thank you again for allowing us to be here today, for the privilege of sitting here before you, and that during this meeting today, that the citizens of Wayne County would see more of you and less of us. These things I ask in your name. Amen. Let's stand for the pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, at the December 2nd meeting, before we move on, at the December 2nd meeting, I made a pretty big blunder in parliamentary procedure. We voted on vice chair, and I did not properly handle it right through parliamentary procedures.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Daugherty.
I read with a lot of other people some of that was in the press. Don't quite understand why there would be any controversy there. But with that in mind, even though it may not be required, I would ask, since I made the motion, I would ask that we resolve that issue. So with that in mind, I nominate Ed Cromartie as vice chairman and ask for another vote. That's fair.
Thank you, Mr. Daugherty. We have a motion on the floor. Any discussion?
That's a nomination. I would ask for other nominations. So
Do-
that's a nomination.
Okay. Is there any other nominations for vice chair? If there's no other nominations or any discussion, All in favor of Mr. Cromartie, show sign of right hand. All opposed? 5-2. Ms. Whitfield. I want to thank the board. I apologize for not doing it properly at the last meeting, but we've got it behind us now. Let's move forward. Mr. Wood, any adjustments to the agenda today?
Yes, sir. We want to add the December 2nd minutes. They were sent out to you yesterday, so I hope everybody's had time to read them. And after that, on one of the special recognitions, the presentation of badge and service weapon to Lieutenant Carl Lancaster with the Sheriff's Office, the Sheriff's asked that we delay that. Lieutenant Lancaster's mother is sick, and obviously he'd like to have her here when we do that. So we'll reschedule that at another time. Under new business, I'm requesting that you add 3 things. One is a recommendation on the HH Architecture contract for the Agriculture Center. And then we have 2 leases for the Wayne Uplift Resource Association, Inc. One is the lease for the Domestic Violence Center, and the other is for an office facility that we lease to them on Ash Street near the Health Department. These are annual renewals. The current lease allows them. So really it's automatic, but we want to do it because they apply for a grant every year, and the grantor wants to see a renewed lease every year because they use it for in-kind services there. The one other thing we want to do is add one budget amendment, and that's on the 4-H 21st Century CLC grant, and Ms. Holt will go over that with you along with the rest of the budget amendments. Those are the changes that we would propose, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Anyone else have any adjustments to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Daugherty.
could we get a copy of the minutes? I know you emailed those out, but I'm
Yeah.
wondering if we can get a copy of those, and 2, if we could get a copy of that budget amendment that's walked on.
Sure.
Oh, is the budget amendment already here?
Yeah.
Okay, I found the
They're
budget.
They're all in that packet.
Are the minutes there as well?
Yeah. Okay.
Are we gonna be voting on that, on the minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
If we can get a copy of those for, I think each of us.
Does everybody want a copy of the minutes?
Does everybody need a copy?
I've already read them,
If not, you can have
Everybody's
one.
okay with them?
I've
Okay,
already
then
read
if I could just have a copy.
with that one change that.
Yeah, I've already
just
read
made. With the vote we just did.
I couldn't figure it
That was the only change. Thank you very much. That's all.
If no one else has any adjustments to the agenda, let's move on to, I think we have one service pen presentation this morning.
Yes.
The board would step down front, please.
Lynn, would you step up, please? This is Lynn Hopkins. Lynn has been with the Solid Waste Department for 30 years, so it's a 30-year pin. That's quite a long time.
Yeah, it
So
is.
congratulations to you.
Thank you.
I'm sure the board- Tim, anything you want to add?
We've been really lucky to have Lynn for the last 30 years. She's holds the department together, makes sure we keep our records straight, and just does an excellent job and a wonderful person.
Great, thank you.
Sorry about that. Thank you very much. Well, I didn't say 5 more.
You can tell I had to be up here, right?
You know, the can, man.
Thank you.
9:15, time for our public hearings. The first public hearing is on the street lights for streetlight district number 5, Ashby Hills. Mr. Wood, if you would take care of that, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, this has been a fairly lengthy process, as y'all know, but we're at the culmination of it today. You have, under state law, established 6 possible streetlight assessment districts. We had a meeting with folks, some representatives from all 6. We gave out petitions at that point. Ashby Hills is the first to turn in their petitions. They had 88% approval on the petition, and just to remind you, under state law, we needed 67% for it to be valid. So it has been certified by both the clerk and the tax administrator who worked on it together. So the purpose of this public hearing is to determine whether you want to confirm the final assessment roll for street lighting special assessment district number 5 in Ashby Hills. The assessment would be equal on all the properties. It would be $49.80 on an annual basis, and I believe we have 61 properties there. We do have contact with Duke Power, and they are prepared to turn the lights on tomorrow. If you approve it this morning, then we'll call them back, and they're ready to go with it. With that, once you hold the public hearing, you're free to go ahead and vote on this resolution, which is on page 5 of your packet. And if you do that, then you have confirmed the assessment roll. That becomes a tax levy on that property, and it can be collected in the nature of the property tax. So Mr. Lumpkin can choose all methods to collect it that we use on property tax collections. And that's pretty much the process. So once you go through the public hearing, you're ready to vote on it.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
We did read this resolution last meeting, or did we? Do we need to read it?
I think it'd be good to read it, but I wouldn't do that
Wait
until
till
after the
after.
public
We're going to
hearing.
have a public hearing first.
Right.
Okay.
But I think it would be good to read it.
Okay.
I would not read all the names, however,
Well, as per attachment, right?
as per attachment.
The public hearing is now open for Streetlight District 5, Ashby Hills. If anyone has any comments they want to make, please come forward and at this time and make your comments. Thank you, Mr. Lieutenant. If you would, just list your name and
Okay.
for us, please.
My name's Michael Hugh Hennett. I live at 102 Kelly Drive. I've been living there for 20 years plus. And I've also lived on the other side of Ashby Hills. I lived on Ashby Lane for 12 years. So I've been there since the development began. I want to welcome Mr. Wood to Wayne County. I know it's a little late,
Thank
but it's the first time I've had the opportunity to do this with you. But thank you for all the work that you've done on this project for us.
Thank you.
We have been in the dark in Ashby Hills for, seems like a long time. But I wanted to let you know how important this is to us. You can tell by the percentages of people that signed up. I put a little sign out front of my house one day, and I said, I'll be here from 1 to 4. You stop by if you want your lights turned on. I had 22 people show up that afternoon. We were very eager to get our lighting back on. It's a safety issue, and we have some elderly people in our development, and they don't leave their homes. They're afraid to drive because they don't know if they can get back into their driveways. So I'm very excited. We are very excited. And this is a good day for Ashby Hills. And I'll tell you something I said at least 2 years ago to my wife one night. And I said, if we can ever get our lights turned back on, I said, I might just have a parade. So I want to invite everybody tomorrow to Ashby Hills. Because, Mr. Wood, you're welcome to be there, please. Charles B. Aycock marching band's gonna be there, and we're gonna parade all around Ashby Hills tomorrow afternoon at 5 o'clock.
Great.
So you're welcome to be there, and all the commissioners are welcome to be there too. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mike. Anyone else have any comments? State your name, please.
Chuck Merritt, Ashby Lane. I want to thank the commissioners for this opportunity. I got a 91-year-old mother-in-law who lives with me, and ever since the light's been turned off, she won't go out. And she's very active for her age. She's very healthy yet, but she even drives herself. But ever since the lights have been turned off, she hasn't drove. She's afraid to get out because one part of our driveway, if you go off it, you're going to have a hard time getting back. So I do appreciate this, and I thank you for your hard work. It really means a lot to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? No one else has any comments. Public session, the public hearing is over. Mr. Wood, you want to read that resolution, or how do you want to handle that?
I'll be happy to, or Ray, do you want to read it?
I'll be glad to read it. Resolution confirming the final assessment roll for street lighting, Special Assessment District Number 5, Ashby Hills. Whereas the Wayne County Board of Commissioners has adopted pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 153A-206, a resolution dated October 21st, 2014, creating 6 street lighting special assessment districts, which included the Ashby Hills subdivision as street lighting special assessment district number 5. And whereas the board has received the required petition from the residents of Ashby Hills requesting that the board levy a special assessment for street lighting for their neighborhood, and said petition has been certified by the clerk to the board as meeting or exceeding the required 67% of the owners of the lots. And whereas the tax administrator has prepared the preliminary assessment roll as required by North Carolina General Statute 153A-194 and has filed it in the office of the clerk to the board. And whereas the board has set the location, date, and time for the required public hearing on its December 2nd, 2014 meeting, and whereas the clerk to the board has published the required notice of preliminary assessment roll availability in her office, and the location, date, and time of the public hearing on the matter. And whereas the clerk has sent said notice of the public hearing by first-class mail to each property owner listed on the roll, and whereas the board has conducted the public hearing and has considered the comments received, now therefore be it resolved by the Wayne County Board of Commissioners as follows. Section 1, the assessment roll attached hereto as attachment 1 and incorporated herein this resolution is hereby confirmed and adopted as the final assessment roll for street lighting special assessment district number 5, Ashby Hills. Section 2, from the time of confirmation, each assessment is a lien on the property assessed of the same nature and to the same extent as the lien for county property taxes under the priorities set out in North Carolina General Statute 153A-200. Section 3, that the clerk of the board is hereby directed to deliver a signed copy of this resolution to the tax administrator for billing and collection in the same manner, except as provided in Article 9, Chapter 153A of the North Carolina General Statutes, as property taxes. Section 4, no earlier than 20 days from the date a final assessment roll is confirmed, the tax administrator shall publish once a notice that the roll has been confirmed as required by General Statutes 153A and 196. Section 5, the county shall not offer any discounts for early payment and will not charge interest for the late payment. However, the tax administrator is authorized to use all lawful means of collection, including but not limited to garnishment, attachment of bank accounts, and foreclosure. Section 6, the full amount of each assessment is due no later than 30 days after the day that notice of confirmation of the assessment roll has been published. Section 7, the county manager is hereby directed and empowered to enter into all necessary contracts or agreements with Duke Energy Progress to expeditiously have the street lights in this district placed back into service. Section 8, this resolution shall become effective immediately upon its adoption. Section 9, this resolution shall be recorded in the Wayne County Registry, passed and adopted the 16th day of December 2014. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that this resolution be adopted as presented.
I have a motion on the floor.
We also need to include the budget amendment.
And the associated budget amendment. Number 214? 204, I'm sorry.
I have a motion on the floor. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Mayor.
I'd just like to say that Ashby Hills, I want to give a special thanks to Mr. Michael Hennett. You can see, and of course, I know he had some help, but I want to thank that subdivision. They really got their petition signed expeditiously. They did that. So I just want to congratulate that subdivision, and we got, just as a matter of information, Buck Run has turned in their petition, but we're not able to set the public hearing because Ms. Marsha Wilson, our clerk, is on vacation and she hasn't been able to confirm their signatures. So we would take care of that one in our next meeting, just as a matter of information. But congratulations, thank you, and thank you for coming.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Doherty.
That being the case, if Buck Runs has been submitted, I take it that when Marcia gets back, that's going to be
Yeah,
confirmed.
we'll handle that in January, and
Hopefully-
Alan will be working on it in the meantime, just to confirm.
And hopefully we can set that public hearing.
That's right. What we try to do is set the public hearing at the first meeting in January, and then vote on it at the second meeting. You'll hold a public hearing, and then vote, just like you did on this process. You set the public hearing date last meeting, and now you're voting today.
Okay, but it actually would end up being the middle of January before we could actually have those lights turned on, is that correct?
That's right. That's right.
Can we go ahead and set the public hearing at this point? For
You
the,
could, I think you could set it contingent upon the confirmation.
Yeah, okay.
And then we'll work on that.
Yeah, that way that'll speed the process up, so in the first
Okay.
meeting in January, we can go ahead and have the public hearing. Is that possible?
Yeah. We can do it.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else have any comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Doherty.
congratulations, Ashby Hills, and the O's forthcoming, but I think we also need to applaud Alan Lumpkin and the tax office for the work they pulled off so quickly for us. They did an outstanding job, and special thanks to Alan and his tax office staff.
Anyone else have any comments?
Just a question.
Mr. Pate.
On Ms. Daugherty's recommendation, did you need a motion on that, or you can just go ahead and set it without it?
Need to vote on this
This
one.
Okay, then do that. Okay, all right.
I have a motion on the floor. If no other discussion, all in favor show sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimous. Mr. Doherty, now make your motion.
I move that we establish a public hearing for our first meeting in January for establishing a streetlight district for Buck Run, contingent upon the verification of signature.
Right. And so we'll have and the public hearing will be for the purpose of reviewing the final assessment roll.
That's correct.
Okay.
At 9:15.
I beg your pardon?
At 9:15.
At 9:15 a.m.
Okay, we have another public hearing scheduled for today. Request to rezone
I got a motion.
Oh, that's right, we got to vote on it. Sorry about that. Have a motion on the floor. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor show sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimous. public hearing number 2, request for rezone property bounded by Highway 111 South and Old Highway 111 from residential agriculture 20 to enter horizontal to community shopping. Mr. Wood, if you would go over that,
Yeah.
please.
Tony, you want to give them a briefing on that?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
We received a request back actually at the end of October from Armando Sanchez to rezone his lot at 130 Old 11 Highway. He would want to establish a roofing supplies and materials business there in the existing building at that location. But it's currently zoned RA20. It was zoned that way when we established and zoning around Sigmund Johnson. However, the building was there at that time, and there were some existing buildings on the other property. So what the planning board looked at was, in addition to considering his request, looked at the other property that was right there adjoining it and the vacant property. And what the planning board was recommending is that his property be rezoned community shopping, but also the adjoining property at 1134 NC 111 Highway, 140 0111, 158 0111, 1098 NC 111, and 1086. That would include the existing church that's out there, another vacant commercial building, a cell tower site, and then a piece of vacant property that could be developed commercially at that location between those two roads.
Any questions for Mr. Price?
Mr. Price, I see why we're expanding, but the other question I'd have is why we would not expand that on to include that entire corner there, where Bill Lane Boulevard intersects with NC 111.
Well, and we could look at that when the planning board did talk about it. So, of course, there's an existing ditch there that forms a good natural boundary between those two right now. And if something comes along at a later date that wants to go there, we can consider the rezoning then.
Okay, so it could be easily rezoned.
Yes, sir. I
At that
think
point,
probably-
if somebody wanted to develop.
Yes, sir. We would just, at that point, we would at least have a better idea of what might would go there on that corner than we do now.
So you just went with a natural ditch that was
Just follow that natural ditch. It's there at the northern boundary of the church property.
Okay.
And I did hear from the owner of the vacant lot that's there, that doesn't have an address, explained to him what was going on and how it would affect him, and told him because of that location, it would probably enhance his property if he were to develop it commercially versus trying to develop it residentially.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Chairman.
Chairman.
Mr.
And
Page?
that was gonna be my question. I'd hope you talk to the other property owners.
That's the only one I heard from, was the one for the vacant
Chet, had
lot.
anybody come in that, any
No,
problems with it?
I've not had anybody express any opposition to it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Price has explained it. Anyone have any comments to make in the audience on the at the public hearing? If no comments, this public hearing is closed. What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve.
Have a motion on the floor that we approve the rezone property boundaries on 111. Any discussion? If no discussion, all in favor show sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimous. Appointment committee, Mr. Gurley.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, appointment committee met this morning. I'd like to recommend 2 appointments to the Wayne County Executive Jet Board Advisory Committee. The 2 recommendations are George Wolf for the at-large and Joe Gurley, County Commissioner. And I'd like to put this for my motion.
Have a motion on the floor. Any discussion? No discussion, all in favor show sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimous. Any others, Mr. Gurley?
That's all, sir.
Is that all? Okay, while we're on appointments, as all of you are aware, the chairman appoints different commissioners to serve on different boards and committees. And normally that is done once a year. I've finished my appointments that I want to make for this coming year. In fact, I finished them yesterday. Cindy, if you would at this time, hand them out. And just for information from the board, I have made some changes. I think that the changes will be for the betterment of Wayne County. And after she hands them out, we'll go over them. Does everyone have their copy? Okay, I'm gonna go down the list and call out the names on the committees for this coming year. Agricultural Liaison, Commissioner Pate. Appointments to the awards committee or recognition of committee, Joe Gurley, Chairman, Commissioner Camardi, and Commissioner Daugherty. Board of Elections Liaison, Commissioner Bale. Emergency Service and Fire Commissioner, I will hold that position. Eastern Carolina Council of Government, Ed Camardi, Mr. Camardi. Eastern Carolina Job Training, Commissioner Pate, and Commissioner Bell is the alternate. North Carolina East Alliance, Commissioner Mayo. Facilities Committee, Joe Gurley, Chairman, Commissioner Daugherty, and myself. Military Affairs, the chairman of the board usually sits on that, so I will sit on that board. Tourism, Commissioner Pate. Transportation MPO, Joe Daugherty, Commissioner Mayo is the alternate. Transportation RPO, Commissioner Daugherty, and Commissioner Mayo is alternate. Wayne County Solid Waste, I will continue to serve on that. Wayne County Health Corporation Board of Trustees, Commissioner Gurley. Wayne County Development Alliance, Joe Daugherty, Executive, myself, and Commissioner Pate. Wayne County Board of Health, Commissioner Mayo. Wayne County Social Services, Commissioner Mayo and Commissioner Pate. Wayne County Council on Aging, Commissioner Bell. Wayne County Public Library, Commissioner Camardi. Wayne County Juvenile Crime Prevention Council, Commissioner Bell. Wayne County Latino Council, Commissioner Bell. Wayne County Transportation Committee, Joe Daugherty, Chair. Wayne County Animal Control Advisory Committee, Commissioner Mayo. Wages, Commissioner Camardi. Wayne County Day Reporting Center, Commissioner Gurley. Wayne County Veteran Service, Commissioner Pate. East Point, Commissioner Bell. Gateway, Commissioner Daugherty and Commissioner Gurley. Wayne County Industrial and Business Park Development Corporation, Commissioner Mayo, Commissioner Pate, and Commissioner Bell. Wayne County Jetport Advisory Committee, Joe Gurley. Highway 70 Corridor Commission, Chris Boyette, Joe Daugherty, Jack Best, Bill Pate, and Chuck Allen. And the last page is just the for Chaplain and Marshall will finish it for the pledge when she gets back. Thank y'all. Thank y'all for what you've done in the past and what we're going to do in the future.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Mayor.
if we have any questions on any of these, will there be any discussions as to reasons why?
I'll be glad to discuss it with any individual that wants to discuss it.
Okay, off now, individual?
After individual.
Okay.
Consent, unfinished business, Mr. Wood?
Yeah, let me get back to it. There's no unfinished business, but there is under the consent agenda. Oh, I'm sorry. We did under the unfinished business, we do have the minutes. be approved.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of the minutes as written.
I have a motion on the floor that we approve the December 2nd minutes. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Pate?
the current minutes will stay as they were, and then the next minutes will reflect the vote that we took today. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? No other discussion. All in favor of Mr. Darty's motion to approve the minutes of the December 2nd meeting, show your sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimous. Consent agenda. Mr. Will.
Mr. Chairman, we have the four types of applications for property tax exclusions. I believe y'all had requested that Mr. Lumpkin be here, and I think you had a question on one of them. So Mr. Lumpkin's here to answer any questions you may have on these.
Are you gonna?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I'll let you open
I've
up.
already briefed him my questions before the, Mr. Chairman.
Mr.
All right.
Pate.
I didn't have any problem with all the others. I was a little confused when I read the part about the one for Rex Hospital, and I was hoping you might shine some light on that for us.
Sure, I'll
if
be
you
glad,
would.
be glad to. Yeah, it's not good when you get summoned by the commissioners first thing on Tuesday morning. I was so concerned. Summoned, yes, I was summoned to appear. But anyway.
I'm sorry.
We didn't send the sheriff, did we?
No. Next best thing, Cindy. Thank y'all for inviting me up this morning. The hospital, this has become a popular trend now. We've experienced here in Wayne County with our local hospital also. The hospital per statute is exempt from property taxation. It appears that they have been expanding their hospital umbrella into private practices. They've been purchasing real estate and equipment. Local doctors' offices, they've been sort of taking those over and they're running under the hospital umbrella. Unfortunately, or fortunately for them, unfortunately for the tax base, is we cannot tax those once that happens because per the statute, and it has been tested in courts. They tried it several times, several years ago, and it was upheld that they would be tax exempt. This particular one here is Rex Hospital. They are operating it's not the real estate, it's just the equipment that's in the office, the doctor's office that they've applied for. And they would qualify for exemption. Had they applied timely during the list period, we would approve these, but since they're late, it has to come before the board.
What tax impact is that, just the equipment tax?
This particular one, I think, I don't have those numbers with me, I don't think it was a matter, I think tax dollars, it was maybe, I want to say several $1,000s maybe. It was not a huge impact, but still, if you do this multiple times, it does become an impact, and especially when it starts involving real estate, and which it has in the past here.
Thank you.
But this one does not, real estate's not involved
No, sir,
because
this is
they're
just-
renting the building.
Yes, sir. This is just equipment, metal equipment. Yes, sir.
Mr. Doyle.
go ahead.
Mr. Doyle.
Well, I mean, this is a concern that I have. I had the same concern when I was on the hospital board. And that is when you are acquiring private practices and converting them over to the umbrella of a nonprofit, the negative tax effect that it has on the counties. And it's it's almost getting out of hand. Where you have a physician that opens a practice and provides health care to patients, and he operates that and pays his taxes, pays his property taxes and part of the community. And then all of a sudden you've got a nonprofit that comes in and purchases that practice and converts the physician to a employee. That has a lot of effect tax-wise on counties and municipalities. And I think I think at this point it's something maybe that the association needs to take a look at to ask for some help from the legislature, because I think it's almost being abused. I can understand hospitals in themselves having some tax exemption, but it's getting really deep now, very deep. So I really have a concern of that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Martin.
Well, and Mr. Darty, so adequately stated my concern also. But just to take this down the road just a little ways, I mean, so the hospital is nonprofit.
Well, let's sort of back up there. Just being a nonprofit does not qualify you automatically for a property tax exemption.
Just being nonprofit.
Being a 501(c) does not automatically qualify you for a property tax exemption.
All right.
There are other criteria you have to meet. In this particular case, it's under the charitable hospital umbrella. If you'll notice on the little application, it has some check boxes there. I think it's maybe the second or third page you have, a copy of the actual application for exemption. If you'll notice on in the middle.
Page 25.
In the middle of the page there, you see the different categories that can be qualified. And
Okay.
the charitable hospital is what they have checked here. We do have some medical practices that are not a hospital, but they do qualify. One that comes to mind is Goshen. And what that says is you are a nonprofit, and over 50% of your clientele are underprivileged or actually subsidized patients. So there are other criteria. Being a 501(c) does not the catch-all. There's other criteria also.
So then, those that can qualify, if they looked around the landscape and saw entities that they could purchase, bring under their umbrella, then they could, if I kind of follow the dots that Mr. Daugherty is, then they could become tax exempt.
Correct.
And therefore, this whole business of tax exempt could spread.
True, yes, sir. And like Mr. Daugherty said, and the concern there is you have these in direct competition with for-profit companies, side by side, and some are paying property taxes, some are not.
And so, like, I guess we could say that business A became under the umbrella of the hospital in 2013, and business C didn't, then business C is at a disadvantage because they're not having that same property exempt opportunity. This is a question that probably may not be an answerable one today, but when, and I guess we'd have to research the archive, but when the hospital originally became a nonprofit, was this kind of thing conceived of at that point, that they being a nonprofit gave them the authority to go over and make a former private business a nonprofit by buying them up and bringing them under the umbrella? And I guess that's just an open question that may take some research to find out, but if you follow that, any imaginative group could bring properties under the, and I see a whole list of them down here, they could bring opportunities like that to bear and could reduce a lot of tax revenue that we're getting that benefits the entire county and citizens. I just think this is, I agree with Mr. Daugherty, we need to look at this as a, I won't use the word problem, but it looks problematic.
Potentially, yes, sir.
Thank you.
It is. At the 23 years I've been here, I've seen this exemption expand, and there, like Mr. Daugherty alluded to, it would have to take a legislative change to tighten up some of these loopholes that you're seeing, I think.
And just to take it, since you said 23 years, now you're going to put some time on it now, Mr. Lumpkin.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you had to just make a casual estimate, what percent of the property that may have, over the last 23 years, can you even put any kind of a phantom on the amount of property taxes lost because, okay, all right, that's asking.
I wouldn't even go there.
All right,
I wouldn't even venture a guess.
I was just wondering if we get a hard figure, or at least a solid figure on what that possibility is.
Now, we do provide to the state each year a AB 50 form, which is basically we have to report all of our exempt properties to the state each year, so the state would have the information. And I don't know how far back that goes, but they could do some comparison. That would be all the exempt properties, not just what we're talking about here today.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Daugherty.
if my understanding is that we really don't have any choice here because the statute basically says we must give them that tax exemption. Am I correct?
You have the choice for this year. You can deny it because they didn't timely file. But your practice has been, if they filed and were entitled, you have been granting it. Next year, if they timely file, there's no choice. It won't even be before you.
We see one thing leads to another, and that is another issue that we need to take up, and that is this matter of automatically allowing people to miss deadlines and automatically approving exemptions after the deadline. I don't know why we have a deadline. You know, we're going to have to start taking a hard look of enforcing the deadlines. If not, why have one? But back to this issue here. So I want to make sure the public's understanding what's happening. This entity, which was previously part of Rex Physicians LLC. So this entity has now merged with Rex Hospital. And as a result, same organization, same equipment, but because it's merged with Rex Physicians, it now qualifies for tax exemption. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
So all this is a bunch of lawyers that basically have found a loophole in order to remove it from property taxes. Would you not agree with that assessment?
I would have to agree with that, yes, sir.
I
Thank
would
you,
have
Mr.
to-
Chairman.
I would not completely agree that it's just the lawyers. I think it's the legislatures.
Yeah, it is.
And it's the same thing that when you talk about the nonprofit.
Right.
3HC is tax exempt, and the Property Tax Commission, over our objection, ruled that they were. But you've got about 4 other hospice type and home health care who are paying taxes in Wayne County.
See, that makes no sense. Well, I think it's something that needs to be addressed, but it is above our pay grade. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Bell?
What would happen if we deny an entity like this? What's the next step?
Well, it's like Mr. Parker said, if you deny it right now, what you're denying is accepting the late application. And they would just not get it for this year. They could reapply in January during the regular listing period that comes to our office, and we would have to approve it, so it would qualify for next year. I mean, they were going to qualify. Had they filed timely this year, they would have qualified. And we would even be here today if they'd have qualified in January, like listed in January like we're supposed to. So it's really, I mean, what you can deny today is, like Mr. Parker said, the late application.
You know, and Mr. Bell, this dollar figure is important this year, but that's not the one that I want us to find out about. I want us to find out about the process, and I hear you saying it's the legislatures who decides on this kind of thing, and therefore, it's the legislators or some representative that needs to let the public know whether they intended for this to be the course of action. Was this intended?
Well, I think Commissioner Doherty hit the nail on the head. Is the courts have interpreted the statute the way it's currently written. So the legislature would have to go back into session and tighten up this language, because I think the original intent was for charitable hospitals.
Right.
But what has happened is they've expanded beyond being strictly a hospital, and they're buying out physicians' medical practices. My guess is when the charitable hospital exemption was voted into law, nobody was doing that. But the way the language is written is it accepts that as part of being a charitable hospital. They would need to go back in and specifically state that the definition of a charitable hospital for purposes of this statute does not include the acquisition of medical practices and the property for that portion of it. And if you did something along that line, and I'll leave the language to the lawyers, but you'd need something like that to make it clear that the intent of the legislature going forward is not to include these medical practices, because the courts have ruled already the way it's currently written that it does include it. So you're back to the question of, do you want to go through the NCACC and see if other counties are in agreement with you and try to go to the legislature to get it changed? And obviously, the medical community in North Carolina is also a strong lobbying group. So
Well,
it'll be an interesting discussion in the General Assembly.
I think I've seen someplace where the county association statewide is asking for each county's goals, I think.
Yeah,
And
we
maybe it's an
submitted those.
opportunity.
Bill, you might give an update
Well,
on that
I was
process.
gonna say that when we go to Pinehurst in February, that's not one of the goals, but any goal can be brought to the floor at that day, regardless of whether it was pushed forward from any county commissioner group at all. So if we felt strongly enough, we could do that.
And if I might add to that, I do know that it actually was one of the preliminary goals, and it was discussed, but they had to choose, and this was not a top priority, but I think it's something that we might want to consider.
One of my concerns is, we can't change what the general statutes are. We've got to abide by the general statutes. But every month, we have these exemptions come before us. We've got to draw the line somewhere in plus 50 years of paying taxes myself. And I think probably most of the people on this board have faced this at one point or another, probably. I fail to pay a state one once in a while. It just gets thrown in the wrong stack, but you still have to pay it. Same thing with IRS. The state and the IRS have never cut me any slack. I mean, and here we are sitting here doing it every single meeting we have. Twice a month we're doing this. And at some point, we've got to draw the line. The law says this, we're gonna go by this. You know, pay your taxes this year and worry about changing your tax status next year. I mean, that's just my personal opinion. Anyone else got anything?
Well, you know, and I don't want the whole public to decide that I want to hold that group accountable and hold this one not. But as you read through these individually from the citizens, they are usually projecting a hardship situation that is far removed from a nonprofit buying up. So although we're discussing in the same group of items, since you're here, Mr. Lumpkin, I individually read those, and they had, each one of them that I read had some fine point about something that caused them to be in a situation where other things pushed that out of their plate at that moment. So as we discuss this, I would not want it to look like we're not considerate of folk who have met some hardship in their life, or who, because of circumstances involving, and some of it involves deaths and other things that can just cloud a person's timeline. So I agree that we all tend to have to be held accountable for what we do and not do, but I would just not want to lump all that together, because the whole nonprofit situation to me looks like it's a big business monetary thing versus an individual citizen having a psychological, timeline, physical, whatever it is. Each one of them is a little bit different, but I would just want to make sure that we didn't adversely affect or harm some citizen out there who needed to have some relief because they just, for some circumstances, didn't get it done as they have indicated individually. Thank you, sir.
Thanks,
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, can I make
Go ahead.
comment first? I want to clarify, I'm not saying deny any of these today. Today is the last meeting we have in 2014. Starting in January, the procedure starts all over again, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm certainly not saying deny any of these today, but I'm just saying at some point, we got to make a decision on whether we're gonna keep extending or not. And it just works out that this is the last meeting in the year, and we just need to get the word out to people that need these exemptions. They need to do it at the proper time. I'm not gonna say there's not gonna be an exception once in a while, but if we just keep on going and going, the situation's not gonna get any better.
Mr. Long, I do have one other question. I believe you've answered this for me before. Well, you next.
It's a whoop.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Don't fight
Go on,
with me.
go on.
And
No,
actually, I
go
was
ahead.
gonna agree with you, but it shouldn't happen often, but anyway.
That's all right. No, go ahead. You go first.
I mean, I understand, and, you know, I've complained in the past about, we continue to do this over and over again. But, I always read each one of those reasons that those folks are late. And I'm not gonna deny an elderly person or a disabled vet, or even our farmers, if there's a legitimate reason why. In most cases, what I'm reading, there is. But, a lot of these people they don't have tax attorneys and that kind of thing, and it really impacts them, their bottom line. So we need to take a look at them and not just, dismiss them altogether. But I'm in agreement, and I know you guys send out letters and all that, and I wish there was some way people would pay more attention. And I guess if we get tough, I guess they would, but,
And that's what if you'll let me take just a minute, I do want to cover those deadlines right now while we're on TV, if
Sure.
you will.
That'd be great.
And up until about 3 years ago, maybe 3 to 4 years ago, when the legislation changed, they were steadfast deadlines, period. There was no what we're doing today. January is the listing period. That's when you list your taxes, you apply for any exemptions that's on your property, such as the farm use or what we're seeing at Rex Hospital today. That was the deadline. You get 1 month. For the elderly exemptions, the VAs, you had until June 1st. So you've got 5 months. So there's plenty of time there to do this. And before the law changed, those were steadfast deadlines. It was, if they didn't make it, they were denied, period. They didn't have a chance to come up here or anything like that. The legislature, they wrote this law several years ago, and instead of them defining it like Mr. Wu was alluding to, there's a lot of gray area in these statutes. Instead of them saying, for this and this and this, you can approve this. They said for showing of good cause, the board can approve this. So that's the way the law was written, handed down to us to interpret. So just to cover those deadlines, January is the listing period. Any exemptions for churches, the hospitals, anything like that, that should be done in January. The elderly exemptions, the VAs, they have until June 1st.
Are you finished?
I'm through.
And the land use value, is that
January.
January.
They have January or 60 days from the filing of a deed.
Oh, okay.
In other words, when the deed is transferred, they have 60.
So every January, you have an opportunity?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, that's good enough.
Yes, sir.
But once you've gone through the process, you do not have to do it every year, correct?
Unless there's a transfer of
Unless
property
there's a
ownership.
transfer.
Yes, sir.
Right.
As long as everything stays the same, once you're in the program, you're staying
Right.
unless something changes, like the use of the land or a transfer.
One last thing before I turn it over to Mr. Bell, because I just hadn't quite finished yet, Mr. Bell. This might be what Mr. Bell might have been raising his hand for. I see here where it says the elderly. It says, on one application here, I'm looking, it says elderly or disabled exclusion.
Yes, sir.
Now, for the elderly part, there's something else other than just being elderly, right?
This particular statute, you have to be 65 or older or 100% disabled if you're not 65. Your income cannot exceed, for 2015, it'll be $29,000. There's an income limitation too. You have to own and reside in your own residence also. So it's not just, you just can't be old and get an exemption. There's other stuff too you have to qualify.
I was just checking to make sure there wasn't some place in there. That's why I said, Mr. Bell.
Come see me after the meeting.
I think you probably eliminated me in the discussion.
Mr. Doherty.
Mr. Chairman, I want to go ahead and remove the Rex request out of the consent agenda for a separate vote on that. And I see here, I'm reading this, it says, any commissioner may request any item to be removed from the consent agenda. So I'm going to ask that that particular application be removed for no other reason to allow this board to send a message that we oppose this particular application for this year.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Mayor. I'd like to leave the door open even in 2015 for extenuating circumstances. I think maybe I would like to suggest to the board that we go back and start looking at each case rather than putting it under the consent agenda to determine an extenuating circumstance. For example, not these particular, but we have, if there is a deed change for any reason, like if you inherit and things like that, all this comes into play. Is that right?
Correct.
And so I was caught in that myself. I'm not an attorney, so, you know, what do you do if you're not aware of it? Just any deed change from myself, if I was to deed my property over to my son or my daughter, that's part of what we have to do here. We have to fill out another one every time. So I would like to see us leave an avenue here for people with extenuating circumstances, and we have to believe that what the notes that are written by these citizens, we have to have a little confidence that they're going to tell us the truth. But I would like to leave that avenue open rather than close it completely off in 2015.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Bailey?
Mr. Allen, could we, at the time that we notify people about the tax thing, send out, they put a form letter in there explaining all these different scenarios of this when they...
We list this in the paper we're required to list this in December. You'll see there's 3 ads coming out probably in the next couple of weeks. We have to list this in the paper.
What I was saying, you know, since we sent out a tax notice, you know, that's already going out there,
It's
all
on
the
the back-
property
it's on the
owners,
back
that
of
we
the
just
bill.
put a form letter in there
It's on the back
explaining
of
all
the-
these.
It's on the back, it's already on the bill.
It's on the back.
It's on the back of the bill, it's on the bill.
People don't read the back.
And there's not enough room on the front, I can't have it so much on the front, we wouldn't report stuff like the amounts on the front and stuff like that, but
Okay.
it is on the bill, yes.
Okay.
And we do, like Mr. Mayor was talking, when property transfers, we do send out applications to the new owners. Now, they may or may not get it, I can't guarantee how the mail runs, but we do send out those applications.
And really, when you have a transaction and property changes hands, I guess this is pick on Attorney's Day, that's the attorney's responsibility that you know what's going on.
I knew it was y'all's fault.
I mean, seriously, I just went through this about 3 years ago. I mean, I got caught in the same situation because it was not brought to my attention.
And I will say that what we run into a lot of times with family members especially, mom and dad or grandparents were in this program. It's been in effect since the late 70s. And they pass away and they inherit the property, and they are not aware at all of the program, or they were in it. They didn't know mom and pop were in it. They didn't discuss it with them. They know nothing about the program until either we send them a letter, or a second letter, or a third letter, and then we do that rollback. That's when it really comes to fruition to them. So there are people that don't know.
That's what happened to me. That's exactly
I mean,
what happened.
the same thing happened to me, but I corrected mine in January.
So let me just ask a clarification question. So if you purchase something and it had not, like farm value, hadn't been farmed for years, it does not become eligible until the year this is actually farmed. It become, I mean, 10 years passed, it hadn't farmed. It was farmland, but it hadn't been farmed. Then the land transfer takes place. Although the land transfer takes place, the current owner has to actually farm it before you would be eligible. Is that correct?
Part of the application process, if you have a tract of land that's not in the program,
Mhm.
and it hadn't been farmed, when you apply to us for that first year, you have to show us 3 previous years of income, showing it has been farmed. That's part of the program.
That it has been
Had to
farmed.
be farmed for 3 years. You have to throw us 3 years prior
Before you
income.
become eligible.
Yes,
All right,
sir.
that's the
Or
answer to the
if you're a
question.
brand new owner, if you buy a property and you're a brand new owner and it was not in the program, there's a 4-year ownership rule also. You have to own it 4 years before you can even apply for the program. There's a lot of rules with this. It's sort of like the exemption thing. It's not just one thing. It's a chain of things you have to qualify for.
Thank you.
We beat that horse.
Okay, all right. Mr. Doherty, you put that in the form of a motion that we take number 1 out.
I do, I make it in the form of a motion that we remove it, and furthermore, on my motion, that we deny the tax exemption for this year to Rex Healthcare.
I have a motion on the floor. Any discussion?
Just one thing, Mr. Chairman, on the positive side, if Mr. Wood, if we could get our public information officer, get this information that Alan has described this morning as far as dates, times, and information, get on our website, and to flood our social media network that we're touching every day. Of course, I know our 2 media outlets here today is going to help cover the story, but the more we can do it and continually do it, I think the better off we're going to.
Any other discussion?
This is just a question to, an open question, in that I think this is important to our attorney. Based upon the motion that Mr. Daugherty has put in place, does it call to question if this board voted to deny the Rex Hospital entity relief for this year, does it call to question our approval of the other folk, regardless of what the case might be, but it's calling into question our approval of those versus not approving the one for the hospital because it is in the statutes and they're eligible for it?
In my opinion, it does not. As Mr. Lumpkin said, you've got to grant them. It's for good cause shown, so it is, every time you grant one, it's implied that you have determined that it's good cause. When you deny it, it's going to be assumed that you have said they have not shown good cause.
Any other discussion? Mr. Doherty.
If I can clarify that a little, they actually had an application here that did not list any valid reason other than they're saying they're providing medical services to the community. There was no reason that they should have or did not file in a timely manner, in my
They
opinion.
haven't shown you.
They haven't shown.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Any other discussion? All in favor of Mr. Daugherty's motion, show sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimous. All right. Now we need to act on the remainder of the consent agenda. Item 2, 3, and 4.
Mr. Chairman, I move adoption of the remaining consent agenda.
Have a motion on the floor that we adopt the rest of the consent agenda, which is item 2, 3, and 4. Any other discussion? No discussion. All in favor, show sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimous.
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you, sir.
New business?
You better go to the public.
Okay, all right.
We're a little
Sorry
late
about
for that.
It is a little past 10 o'clock. Public comment section is now open. If anyone has any comments to make, come forward, state your name, address, phone number, and you're allowed 4 minutes.
My name is Dan Bailey. I'm from Rocky Mount. I own Bailey Music Company. We handle video games and pool tables and that type of equipment. My telephone number is 252-985-7745. And I was contacted by a gentleman who wanted to rent a piece of property on Highway 70. It's 5423. And we also provide sweepstakes equipment, and he wanted to see could he rent the property to put that type of business in it. And he contacted the lady, the realtor, and she said she didn't have a problem with it as long as everything was okay with the county and they didn't have any issues. The gentleman was supposed to be here, is in the hospital this morning. I just provide equipment. He called me to see what I provide the equipment. And we have sweepstakes equipment in different counties and, you know, in the state. So anyway, he's in the hospital. He can't show up. But he found out, he talked to Connie, and I understand that there is a ruling that it has to be within 1,000, if there's anything within 1,000 feet of another residence or whatever, they can't use it for that. And they found out that there's a property that's like 440 feet away. And that was the only issue they had that would probably keep them from opening the business. So I've just come to find out if he could possibly get a variance or what he may need to do to be able to open that business. That's just what I'm here for, just to find out on his behalf and mine if he can rent it and open it up for that type of business. There's some in Goldsboro and in a lot of counties in North Carolina. And I just was trying to find out what he may need to do. Does he need to hire an attorney, or from here, what he really needs to do to move forward?
I certainly don't think we can give you an answer today.
Okay.
I would, Mr. Wood, Mr. Parker, if you would, I would say look into that and come back with the facts on where that property is at, and also include Connie in it, and come back.
Did I give you the address? Did I? It's 54, I believe it's 5423 Highway, hold on one second. There was a car lot there, it's just out of city limits. It's 5423 Highway 70, Goldsboro.
East or west?
It's towards Kinston. If you,
East.
if you, I understand it's just right out of city limits. But anyway, I was just trying to find out. That's all I had to ask. Should I contact you gentlemen about it, or?
Yeah, if you can give us your name and phone number.
Okay, I'll do that.
Does any of the board have any questions for the gentleman? Okay, just give them your contact information, and we'll let the county manager and Mr. Parker and the planning department look into it for you.
Okay.
Mr. Doherty.
I'll have him get back with somebody or we will.
And since we're beating up on attorneys today, we would like to try to see that you can refer to the citizen and ask him just to deal with our county manager and not necessarily having to hire an attorney. We are here to provide service to our citizens any way we can.
Okay, anybody ever tell you you look like Dan Rather when he was young? I mean, you were younger
Oh,
than
my
he is.
God.
Really? Anybody ever say that?
Oh.
You do look like, I mean, when he was,
that right?
you know, you're a lot younger. When he was younger, I swear you look like,
Dan Rather. He asked questions
One of
like
my
Dan
favorite
Rather also.
does he?
He asked questions like Dan Rather.
You know, it's something, he reminds me a little bit of.
Y'all got
Anyway.
1 minute to finish this discussion.
All right, I'm gonna be out of here.
Okay.
They're
Thank you for
real-
your help, and I hope everybody has a nice Christmas.
Okay.
They're really
Thank you.
cousins. Maybe he does need to get that attorney.
Anyone else have any comments to make at the public comment section? If not, the public comment section is closed. New business, Mr. Wood.
Yes, so we've got the video we talked about from Kevin Leonard at NCACC.
Hi, my name is Kevin Leonard, and I'm honored to be your Executive Director of the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners. On behalf of all of our staff here at the association, I would like to extend to you a special hello to your board and a congratulations to our newly elected commissioners. Being a county commissioner, we know can be challenging and sometimes a thankless job. But please know that we appreciate all of you who are willing to step up and be a leader in your county and in your state. It's an exciting time here at our association. It's a time of change and transition and new ideas. And my hope is to hear from you about your new ideas that will make our association even stronger as we move forward. In this brief video, you will hear about some upcoming opportunities for you to learn more about county government and our association. We're actually in the process of developing our legislative agenda for the upcoming biennium, and it's not too late for you to get involved. I encourage you to attend our Legislative Goals Conference, which will be held in Moore County this January, to learn about the legislative issues and to get involved in our grassroots advocacy efforts. You know, we're very fortunate that our association in North Carolina is one of the strongest county government associations in the entire nation. And our secret is you. Through your active participation, together we are 100 counties strong, and together we can do great things. As always, please call us if we can be of any assistance, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
The association has completed the first 3 stages of its 5-step legislative goals process. The last stage, your Legislative Goals Conference, is January 15th and 16th in Moore County. We have 45 goals still under consideration regarding issues as diverse and critical
of agenda. Make sure your county is part of the process by registering on our website. We need input from all regions of the state. to give us the strongest position possible to advocate for your agenda at the General Assembly.
One of the association's primary responsibilities is to help you understand your roles and responsibilities as county commissioners. There are numerous educational opportunities coming up in the next few months. The first is for new board chairs and vice chairs on January the 14th in Moore County. This day-long session will teach presiding officers the rules of procedure and how to manage a meeting. At the end of the day, all board members are invited to a discussion of general parliamentary procedure. In addition to this training, every 2 years following county government elections, we partner with the School of Government at the University of North Carolina to sponsor the Essentials of County Government Schools. The comprehensive 2-day course serves as an orientation to county government law and practice for new and veteran county commissioners. It is the foundation course for earning credits in the local Elected Leaders Academy. The Essential Schools will be offered in 4 locations throughout the state in January and February. The curriculum includes basic county government law, local taxation and the financing of county government services, handling conflicts of interest, public school financing, and building relationships with other boards and interests. Also included is the 2-hour mandatory ethics training required by state law for every new or returning commissioner within 1 year of election or re-election. Veteran commissioners not enrolled in the Essentials classes, as well as municipal elected officials, can attend this advanced seminar for a modest fee. To learn more about these programs, please visit our website at the address on your screen.
I want to make everyone aware of a new service we rolled out in November this year. It's a human resources legal helpline, and it is designed to assist risk pool members with basic time-sensitive employment issues, such as employee terminations, addressing harassment or discrimination allegations, or even requests for reasonable accommodations. Basically, issues that, if handled improperly, could lead to litigation and avoidable HR problems. We've contracted directly with risk pool attorneys that have strong employment law experience in order to provide sound HR legal advice at no initial cost to our membership. If you are a member of the risk management pools, and you do have to be a member to have access, you should have received information from me in November about how to gain access and utilize this service. This is yet another example of our efforts to continually improve our risk management product and services, adding value to an already superior government-based risk coverage and finance program. And in fact, the NCACC risk management pools are the #1 provider of property and liability and workers' compensation coverage for the entire state, with 68 of the 100 counties participating as risk pool members.
Any comments on the video we just saw?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to comment on that 2-day Essentials of County Government. I strongly recommend that to y'all, anybody who hasn't been through it, even if you have been through it. Now that you've been on the board for 2 years, I would strongly recommend you go through it, because when you're first elected to the board, sometimes you haven't gone through some of these things. It'll mean more to you probably the second time through. But I can't emphasize that enough. It's a good course to really get at the essentials and the basics of county government.
Okay. Anyone else have any comments?
Mr. Chairman, I point out that 2 of the ladies you saw there
Wayne County natives, Trish Rossler and Joanna Reese.
Really? We train them and ship them off. Before anyone else got any comments on the?
But I was gonna save it to my
Okay.
comments later about
It's up
the
to you.
meeting that we had. I can talk about it a little bit now.
Go ahead.
We did meet on the 3rd, and we spent a great deal of our time talking about the legislative goals. And you think it gets hot, the contested issues in here, you should have been there with a room full of commissioners from all over the state. And anyway, we moved forward, and we went through all of it. Some things were moved forward, some things were taken out. And but at the meeting, we'll go over the goals, and we'll all vote it in to go forward. But it was very interesting, and I'm not going to go too deeply in it because it take up too much time. But the staff itself, we got a really good staff, and I appreciate Kevin being out there. And our new chairman, Ronnie Bill, he's a trip, that's all I can say. He came in as Santa Claus at the end of the meeting. Got to have fun too. But one of the good things I've talked about, our balance sheet is really strong, and all the counties that were paying in as members and have been in there so long, the balance has gotten so high that they're actually going to return some of the money back to the counties. So they didn't tell us about the amount of the check was going to be George, but they told us there was even one coming. So we'll find
Be
out.
on the lookout.
I'm sure we'll take anything we can get back. That's right. But that goes to show you they are looking after our dollars up there, and all you gotta do is pick the phone up and give them a call. And not only on the association, but the other steering committees, you will meet so many other commissioners and make some really valuable contacts. So I encourage each of you to do that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other comments? If not, before we go to budget amendments, can we take about a 5-minute break?
Yes, sir.
Need.